Thank you. It's a privilege to be here today, and thank you so much. I love talking about Anadarko and sharing our story, especially Greater Attributes. It's a project that's near and dear to my heart. I've spent the last 5 years as the project manager on that environmental impact statement. I am a petroleum engineer embedded in a regulatory group for Anadarko. We're, I think, a pretty unique model. I have a team that has a scientist biologist. I have several project managers that have advanced degrees that are not in the industry but are in regional planning and environmental sciences. And so we are about 5 to 10 years ahead of the rigs for Anadarko. So my team attempts to characterize the risk when we have explorationists come in and talk to me about what they'd be dealing with, and if they're successful, how will they convert a project. My team looks at it very holistically, from air, water, community, critters, the lands, federal lands, and characterize if we're going to be successful. Are we up for the process? So I'll make sure they understand the process if we're on federal lands. Is the benefit, the cost benefit and value there for the company, and are we doing it the right way? So I'm going to share some of our company's, our mission and our values as well, because they really drive our thought process. So with that, I may make some statements about the future, especially if you ask some questions. I tend to be a storyteller. My boss said, Brooke, stick to the script. Don't go off on one of your stories, but if I say something that is a future statement, our attorneys require that I let you know that there is some caution. I'm making those statements based on the best available information I have today, and things can always change. So I heard some giggling out there. So Anadarko, who are we? You know, a lot of people don't recognize us because we don't have the brand name of a Mobil and Exxon. But we are a global company. We employ 5,100 people, men and women worldwide. And this year we'll probably spend $6.6 to almost $7 billion exploring and developing oil and natural gas. And if you've heard about us recently, I mean, we have a lot on shore. We also have one of the biggest natural gas discoveries off the coast of Mozambique, Western Africa, we're very proud of. And then we're in China and South America as well. Regional office, where I come from, Denver. So our mission and our values, Anadarko, you can read the mission. We are there for the shareholders to provide value. We believe in our values, integrity and trust, servant leadership, people and passion, commercial focus, open communication. I get evaluated on that, how effective I am in all these values. 50% of my performance every year is evaluated on these types of values. And not only how I exhibit them in the company, but outside of the company as well. Because of the innovations that we've made over the last few years, we were just recently added to Forbes' list of the most innovative companies, top 100. We're very proud of that. So that's Anadarko, Greater Attributes. I'll talk a little bit about the background. The stakeholders, what I believe was the model of cooperation and why we were successful. When I say we were successful in bringing an EIS to conclusion, is that we did this in about 4.5 years. We did not do it alone. This was a collaborative effort with many agencies and stakeholders. There are documents that I'm involved in other states that are tracking 9 years without a draft. And they are less controversial, I believe, but because of a number of issues, it is a slow process working through NEPA. And for a company like us, Steve Block mentioned yesterday, we need certainty, timeliness, and we're willing to work. It takes time to develop that trust. And it takes time to develop the solutions. But to see a process that goes on 9 years plus is hard for us. So we are very proud of Greater Attributes. I'll talk about the technology advances and the lessons I learned through the process. So Greater Natural Buttes, this is a 160,000 acre project. It was an existing development. It's about 40 miles south of Vernal, Utah, near the confluence of the Green and White Rivers. This is a map of Colorado and Utah. You see Uinta Basin off to the left there. There's 2,300 wells out there. The EIS approves another 3,700 wells, huge project. We are producing about 500 million cubic feet of gas a day out of that field today. That's equivalent to 100,000 barrels of oil a day. Huge, huge. It was first drilled in 1957, and like I said, we are rejuvenating an old field. And so a lot of the things that we've done to preserve the environment is piggybacking on existing disturbance and development. As an engineer, I have to give the geologists, I have to talk a little bit about geology so you understand where we were coming from when we started this project. So this is this field, the target formations of the Wasatch Mesa Verde. These are discontinuous lenticular sands. I liken them to, a story I like to tell is the bowl of potato chips. And so the natural gas is in those potato chips, and they're all, you know, you imagine it's all scattered. You drop a straw in, you may only intersect a couple of those potato chips. You drop in multiple straws, imaginary straws, you intersect more of the potato chips and produce that natural gas. Our natural gas out here has a condensate oily component, and we produce the natural gas into the Chipeta gas processing plant and can pull off ethane, propane, butane. But as far as the geology, if you look at the schematic on the right, what you see is a directional drilling schematic. You have multiple wells from a single pad. These drill vertically down through the bird's nest. This is a zone we want to protect because it's an aquifer in the area, regional aquifer in the area. Then after we get out below that, we deviate or drill directionally. And then before we hit our target formation, we drop back down vertically again. So we call it an S-curve. So you drop, and you curve, and you come down. A lot of people, you'll hear, this is a story, you'll hear a lot of words interchanged for directional drilling. You'll hear deviated wells. These are wells that tend to start from the surface and go off a certain distance. You'll also hear horizontal drilling, which Scott Donato talked about yesterday, where on the front range for Anadarko in the Wattenberg field, we'll drop down vertically 6,000 feet, imagine, more than a mile, and then we will go out 10,000. We can go out 5,000 1 mile, or we're testing 10,000 2 miles out horizontally. Pretty amazing. This, because of the discontinuous nature of those lenticular sands, is not suitable for horizontal drilling. At least the Wasatch and Mesa Verde are not. Our reaches are generally about 600 feet on the average. We have, in some cases where we're trying to avoid the hookless cactus, viewshed, other topographic issues, we have, on a limited basis, gone out 2,000 feet on our reach. So Greater Natural Buttes Field, this is just an outline of the EIS. You can see we had a broad mix of lands out there as far as ownership. In the green, we have the Ute Indian tribe. The minerals under the Ute Indian tribe in this area are federal. You also have the state lands, which are blue. The yellow is the BLM lands. Prior to having that EIS, most of our development was on state lands. All of these existing dots you see out there, this was prior to our EIS. So that gives you an idea of how much existing development was out there before the 3,700 wells were approved. Through the EIS, our goal was to minimize our footprint through directional drilling. We have some of the best emissions controls of any company out there. We have tested liquid natural gas fired drilling rigs, and we're still evaluating that data out there. That was a requirement under the EIS, a commitment we made with EPA. We are recycling significant volumes of water and really reduce the amount of water we're using fresh water. Again, EPA required that we do groundwater monitoring and surface water monitoring out there, and we're getting ready to start that as well. I think all the wildlife issues have been manageable. There is a small population, a declining population, unfortunately, of the greater sage-grouse, the south of the field. We have not been in that area drilling. Some of that drilling is pre-existing. Most of our development is up in the north part of the field, but we've not been down around the sage-grouse purposefully until we have a better understanding of that population. We've spent money funding it, the monitoring of the birds early in our project, and also we've spent money understanding the habitat. We avoid the viewshed as part of our discussions with Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance, and also as a commitment to the tribe and the BLM. And we've got some great cultural resource studies out there as well. But I'm going to talk about more of this in a few minutes. So the stakeholders, you can read them. We were the project proponent. BLM was the lead agency. Ute Indian Tribe was a cooperator, as was the Uinta County Commissioners, where Commission was a cooperator. Lots of local community support. State agencies, we worked with Bill James and several other organizations within the state. Conservation groups, Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Drew Crane, had a lot of great discussions. And Environmental Protection Agency. I'd really like to say that we're very proud of these relationships we built with everybody. I will tell you, no one gave us a free pass. It took some time to have the discussions, understand the perspectives, and to develop some common ground. People care about the air that they breathe out there. The county commissioners care about the air, the roads. Fish and Wildlife cared about the Colorado River fish and the cactus. The conservation organizations cared about the recreational aspects of the White River. And EPA, we had a great discussion and made a lot of progress with Kate Fay. She kept the discussions going. She's an assistant to the Region 8 Jim Martin director, and she really helped us along with our discussions with EPA. So the model for cooperation. It's really important for Anadarko to recognize what all the stakeholders value, and also to understand where we're coming from. And that's what my team tries to do. We try to look at it from a different perspective, but also know what our technical people are capable of doing. Engagement early and often. If you're not having those discussions probably before you even start the EIS, when you're developing the project description, you're probably too late. And we learned some lessons there. There were times where we were a little late to the discussion that probably slowed down the process, and good lessons learned on our part. Incorporate, and I'm not going to say best management practices. I think as a company we do that, but I'm talking about best project management practices where we overlay schedules and we really get people to embrace meeting goals and timelines. And if we can't meet them, we don't want to sacrifice what we're doing, and we don't want to avoid anybody being heard. But if we can't meet these timelines or these, we have to understand why. So what's holding it up, so we can either put more resources to it or take more time to discuss it. And then have a great story to tell. I will say that our technical folks really stepped up, and they implemented a lot of great things out in the field. So we could show, as we went through this process, that we believed in what people were telling us. So you really have to be able to have that foundational story. And then support from the community, keep the local jobs local. And we provided a lot of support for education out there. Directional drilling and existing pads. So we wanted to, this map, what I want to show you here is, if you can see the pink areas, they overlie a gray area. It's a smaller disturbance. These were existing pads in the field. We've expanded them a little bit to get additional wells. Now we went from 40-acre surface. We recognized because of these lenticular sands that we were not recovering all of our reserves, and we needed to go down to 10-acre locations. And so what we've done is on 40-acre surface, there's about 16 pads per section. To go to 10, you're probably going to have 64 pads per section. We've eliminated all those additional pads by drilling directionally off these pads. And so in the green dots, you can see all the bottom hole locations. We use existing roads wherever possible. I will tell you probably greater than 90% of this field right now is being developed off of existing roads and pads. It costs us as a company more money to build roads. We don't want to build roads. It costs us more money to build pads. We don't want to do that. So a lot of things that we agreed to and worked through, not only to have a benefit to the people, the other stakeholders that we're talking to, and the environment, but they also have a benefit to our bottom line. That's just an artistic rendition of directional drilling. And then over to the left, that's a foot of the rig that literally walks 10 feet to the next well on the pad. So with the other thing that our technical folks did was develop a system of transporting water throughout the field through irrigation lines so we could reduce truck traffic. And if you imagine, this is how congested a completion can get, or pad can get during completion operation, and we're able to eliminate a significant amount of the tanks on those pads by moving the water and recycling water from pad to pad. I wanted to give you a couple facts about this. We reduced truck traffic emissions by 82%. We reduced the miles that we drove, 1.5 million miles through this system. It's a very simple system. It's not treating the water, it's just moving it through pipes. And they just pull them up off the ground and move them to another section of the field. And we reduced our fresh water use by 70% by recycling the existing water. With reclamation, traditionally our reclamation, we would just cover up the pit, reclaim the pit. We'd still leave 3 acres of disturbance, pretty big footprint for operating a pad. We now have some pretty aggressive interim reclamation where we can get that pad, and that's that brown area on the right-hand side, down to 1 acre and start reclaiming the rest of the area. So I'm going to call this successful interim reclamation. My boss looked at it and he goes, well, this doesn't look very successful. Greater Natural Buttes is a really tough area to reclaim. And so you can see the smaller footprint. We really struggle with halogeton and the reclamation and growing out there, but we are certainly trying to pull our pad size back and get the process going. This closed loop drilling you hear a lot about. This is post EIS. It wasn't a requirement in the EIS, but I will tell you we have gone to closed loop drilling for most of the area out there. You use about half the water. You don't have that big reserve pit. It's all done mechanically through tanks that are attached to the rig. And you do have a small cuttings pit. But again, smaller pad size and half the water during drilling. So lessons learned. Corporate values are hugely important. They allow the leadership to get behind your ideas. Outreach, can't do it soon enough. Scott Donato mentioned that yesterday. We really need to explore everybody's perspective and see if we can find common ground. Having a great third-party contractor, project management, sticking to schedules, understanding why a schedule slips, and planning. And then that great story, making progress, being innovative, and then agency cooperation. So that's what I have. Thank you. So is this the type of project that Anadarko would do on private lands? I think you said something, or is this more typical of federal lands, federal requirements? This is typical of Anadarko, wherever we operate.
What's the time frame from where you conceptualize a project and actually that first well is drilled?
You know, every project's different. You know, they were working on this project description for about 2 years, and the EIS took another 4.5, 5 years. So, you know, it's a 7-year effort. We had old environmental analysis out there on the federal lands that we were still operating under. It allowed us to drill a very limited drilling program. So I will tell you, our company came to us and wanted 15 rigs out there and wanted us to move through the area and convert it to to production. And because of our lack of the EIS, we weren't able to do that. And so we drilled some on federal, some on state. And again, we're very thoughtful. Everything we did on federal, we do on state and private lands as well. I will say the permitting process is less, it's more, is shorter on state and private lands.
You cited, you referenced resource conservation from the standpoint of water use and miles driven. Do you have metrics on the economics of that from the company standpoint? Did it cost you more or less?
Well, I will tell you it costs us less. So a couple stories, and tell me when you have to cut me off. So a couple stories that I'm not supposed to tell stories, but a couple stories. When we were looking at directional drilling, when we went in with a project description, our proposed action was 10-acre and 20-acre surface disturbance, had no directional drilling in it. We had not done directional drilling as a company. It was being experimented with Jonah and Pidale. Our guys looked at the economics. So we do, everything we do is, well, not everything, but a lot of what we do is driven by economics. And they looked at the economics. I went to Selma Sierra and said, and she was the director, state director of BLM at the time, I said, there's no way this is going to cost us $100,000 to $200,000 a well to drill these wells directionally. It is more cost effective for us to go have the increased surface disturbance. I was wrong. Our guys were wrong. BLM pushed back and said, test it. We tested it, and all of a sudden our guys were looking at the cost effectiveness. You save on roads, you save on building those paths, and they did look at the economics. I just can't tell you what they are, but they saved significant amount of money, and in mobilization costs for the rigs, construction costs, being able to transfer water. We would never have been able to transfer the water around that field had we not had multiple wells on a pad. It's not cost effective. The other thing that this closed loop drilling. Again, I'll tell you, 2 years ago, our drilling engineers would have said, no way, Brooke, too expensive. We now save $50,000 a well on closed loop drilling, and it's in the smaller pad construction costs. So when you all are thinking about what you want a company to do, like Steve Block said yesterday, it takes time. It takes time for us to embrace it and explore it and test it. Don't give up. But, and challenge us, but we will also challenge you back about what's reasonable. But we do look at the cost benefit. And drilling, 5 years ago, took us 2 weeks to drill, not 2 weeks, it took us a month to drill one of these wells. Today, we can drill those wells in 6 days. The cost savings of this consolidation is phenomenal.
So are you using closed loop drilling on all your well sites now?
I talked to, and I can't answer that. I know that we're headed that way, and I know that they have converted many of the rigs. I can't tell you if it's all. I know we're permitting them both ways, so I know we're permitting it as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks.